Well, with me right now, I have the costume designer from the film, Repo, Alexandra Kavanagh. And she works very closely with director Darren and Bausman, so if you have any questions to ask, just concerning the film, I'm sure she'd be happy to answer them. So, does anybody have any questions?
Yes, one over there?
How long did it take you to design the Repo mask and actual outfit?
You would think, because it's such a major costume, that we would have had a lot of time to work on Repo Man's actual costume, but we actually did it in about 8 days. From the time that we made the conscious decision to go with the sort of surgeon vibe, because there was a lot of concept sketches for the Repo Men from the stage play that parents had done concept sketches. And the script actually called for the mask to do a lot more. It had some sort of X-ray vision and stuff like that. So in the play, the actual Repo Man looked a bit more like Darkman with the hat and the mask, where we needed our mask to have eye teeth so that you could see them, but we ended up not doing that anyway. So we had about 8 days from the time we actually decided on how we were going to go to develop it, and because we shot it very quickly. Actually, my cutter, Nancy, is here tonight, who actually did the pattern of the coat, and actually, and amazing job of the sound because Alexandra Kavanagh sweaters.
Do we have any other questions in the audience? Yes, right there.
Since Repo is set in the future, what inspired you to use the kind of like historical Victorian costumes for like Shiloh and stuff?
Again, a lot of the stuff, inspiration Darren had came from the stage play. They had used the Victorian theme in the play. When we decided to do it as a feature film, I didn't want to stick to any one historical period because I hate that. But on the other hand, because it's only in the near future, I wanted to create costumes that are actually believable to exist. And most of the clothes in the film, a lot of them were made, but a lot of the stuff that was bought, we just bought at regular stores and styled it. So, look at the hench girls, most of their stuff comes from H&M. Most of Shiloh's stuff comes from really cheap stores in the mall. So having the vibe of historical look, it just had a bit more of a gothic feeling. We wanted to sort of have that kind of, and for me personally, the romantic period, the early 1800s, is my favorite period for men. It's a great silhouette, it's got dramatic collars and great sort of neck pieces. So that's why I went with that. It's just sort of have a really great sort of iconic look to everybody and really just have fun with it.
More questions in the audience? I thought you had that shut up unless she answered exactly what you were going to ask. Anyone? Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about Shiloh's look and what inspired? Because she has a pretty specific look in each of the scenes.
That's a pretty good question. Shiloh's look, actually, I spent a lot of time thinking about Shiloh because her character, she's grown up sequestered in her bedroom with very few sort of looks to the outside world other than through the television, and she's never had friends. I imagine that when she was really young, he must have had some novels like Jen Turner or something coming and taking care of her. But for the most part, she's just there alone with all these pictures of her mom. So for me, where does she get her clothes? A lot of the stuff I sort of place on the mother in the photograph, and then we sort of scale it down because Sarah Power, who plays Marnie, is actually like 5'10", like really tall, and then Alexa Vega is like 5'2", very small. So we basically just scaled stuff down and had, because Shiloh, Nathan is obsessed with just keeping her safe and having her, as basically a living memory of Marnie. It didn't let her grow up, so her costumes are very little girl, which that's how Nathan sees her as a little girl, but now that Alexa Vega is not a little girl anymore, that's slightly disturbing to see a grown woman wearing these. I mean, you see it all the time in the strippers and whatnot when they do the little girl outfit. It's sexy, right? It's kind of creepy sexy, but and that's what we do with Shiloh is that, you know, he sees her as a little girl. She's not a little girl anymore. A lot of what the story is about is her sort of seeking her freedom and, you know, her ability to actually just grow up and be an individual and not be, you know, this living monument to Marty. And so with her look, we just wanted to, I just try to imagine where did her clothes come from, that she took stuff from her mom's closet and sort of fitted it down to herself.
I'll think of a couple more questions, but before we continue, I'd just like to note that if anybody's still up there and we're going to give away the prizes, come down here. So I'm going to ask a question and I'll have to point you out in the audience. It's really hard to see all the way up there, so just a note. Does anybody have any other questions? And feel free to ask questions about anything other than costumes, because I'm sure you have experience with on set. Yes?
How did you find out about and get involved with Repo?
I first met Darren on Saw II. I designed the costumes for Saw 2, 3, 4, and 5, probably. Probably 6, sadly. So on Saw 2, Darren was talking about Repo, how he wanted to get this made, and on Saw 3, again, we were talking about it, and that's when we actually, you know, he was so determined to get it made, and that we shot a short film. 12 minutes long, I guess 15 when you add in all the animation, and so that's I've been involved with it since 2004.
Any other questions? Right there.
I actually had a question about this sweater. I was wondering if it was bought or made, and if it was made, what inspired how it was cut together.
Yes, this sweater has a story. The story is that I had no money, but I had big dreams, big hopes, and I was trying to really sort of channel runway fashion, everything a little bit over the top, you know, and so for menswear, for the most part, it's pretty boring out there. And my custom designer found this fantastic Alexandra Kavanagh sweater, which was like $1,200 or something, and I had about 12. So we tried it on, and it didn't quite, the fabric that the sweater was made of was a little bit too clingy and everything. So Nancy, my genius cutter, you know, took the pattern, and then we chose different fabric, and we just made it have a little bit more drape. So it's actually a bit of a stolen design, and I'm not afraid to admit that. Just because it was really great, I just love the way that it had the drape, but it also had the weird angles. And it works really well in that sequence where we're trying to establish Nathan's character. You kind of think he's soft and fuzzy, but then you kind of wonder what the heck's going on. He's definitely got a bit of a split personality. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? So this first night, Dr. Jekyll kind of tells me I'm a doctor and your father kind of guy.
We'll take one more question before we start again. Yes, right there.
I want to know the corset that Sarah Rice was wearing. Was that also made by you, or did you buy it locally?
In the opera corset?
Yeah.
In the opera, she is wearing a feather piece that we made. It's basically some by the inch feathers that we got and practically taped together. And the corset over top, the leather cincher corset is from Northbound Leather on Young Street. They do beautiful leather corsets there, actually. Does anybody looking for one? And yeah, so it was tiny, like that's a 22-inch waist cincher, tiny, and she was wearing a harness under there, so it's great, she's tiny.
All right, so now we can give away some stuff. So the way this is going to work is that I'm going to ask a question. Don't yell out the answer. I'm going to have to make up another question if you do that. So just stand up, put your hand in the air, and scream testify as loud as you can. Raise your hand. You can jump up and down. Don't take a running jump off a seat. Don't do it. I mean, I'll probably notice you earlier. Just don't do it. So our first prize is a poster from the film, which you can see in the lobby there, and it's signed by the director.